There is a kind of happiness that does not roar, but rests. It is not the loud, restless pleasure the world so often chases, the thrill that flares and fades and leaves us emptier than before, but a deep, quiet contentment, a serene and untroubled peace of mind. More than 2,000 years ago, in a simple garden outside Athens, a gentle philosopher named Epicurus devoted his life to this quiet happiness and taught his friends the art of finding it. And though his name has been misunderstood for centuries, his wisdom is, at its heart, a wisdom of tranquility, a map to the peaceful, contented mind that we too are seeking, especially now at the end of the day, as we lay down our burdens and prepare for rest. Epicurus believed that the goal of life was not wealth, not fame, not power, not even wild and endless pleasure, but something far gentler and far more attainable: tranquility, a mind free from disturbance, a heart free from fear, a life of simple pleasures, deep friendships, and quiet contentment. He called this state Ataraxia, freedom from disturbance, and he believed it was the highest happiness available to a human being, and one within reach of anyone in any circumstance who understood the art of it. Tonight we will sit gently with the wisdom of Epicurus, this quiet philosopher of the garden who understood that the deepest happiness is peace. We will explore the tranquility he sought and how to find it, the freeing of ourselves from the fears that trouble us, the art of simple desire, the sweetness of simple pleasures, the treasure of friendship, and the deep contentment of a mind at peace. You do not need to remember any of it or strive for anything at all, for tranquility is not reached through striving, but through gentle release. Just slow your breath, let the day's disturbances dissolve, and let the calm wisdom of Epicurus guide you toward the peaceful, untroubled rest that is the truest happiness of all. Let us begin by clearing away a great misunderstanding, for the name of Epicurus has, over the centuries, been strangely twisted into its opposite. Today, an Epicurean is thought to be one who lives for luxury and indulgence, who chases fine food, rich wine, and endless sensual pleasure. But the real Epicurus taught almost the reverse. He lived with extraordinary simplicity, on bread and water, and the occasional pot of cheese, in a modest garden with his friends. And he taught that the path to happiness lies not in the pursuit of ever more pleasure, but in the cultivation of a simple, tranquil, contented life. Epicurus did believe that pleasure was the good, that a pleasant life is a happy life. But he understood pleasure in a deep and subtle way. He saw that the highest pleasure is not the intense, fleeting excitement of indulgence, but the deep, stable contentment of a mind at peace and a body free from pain. The wild pleasures the world chases, he observed, are often followed by pain, regret, and a restless craving for more. They disturb our peace rather than deepen it. But the quiet pleasure of a tranquil mind, content, serene, free from fear and disturbance, is a stable and lasting happiness, one that does not turn to ash in our hands. This is a profound insight, and one our restless age has largely forgotten. We tend to imagine that happiness lies in more excitement, more acquisition, more intensity, more stimulation. And so we chase these things endlessly and find that they do not satisfy, that each thrill fades and leaves us craving the next. But Epicurus saw that this chase is a trap, that the pleasures of intensity are unstable and self-defeating, forever escaping us even as we grasp them. The deeper happiness, he taught, lies in a different direction entirely, not in the pursuit of more, but in the cultivation of a quiet, contented, tranquil mind. There is great relief in this teaching, especially for the weary, for it means that happiness is not a distant prize to be won through endless striving and acquisition, but a quiet state of being available to us now through simplicity and peace. We need not exhaust ourselves chasing the intense pleasures that never satisfy. We can turn instead toward the gentle contentment that does, the simple pleasures, the deep friendships, the tranquil mind that is the truest happiness. The quiet happiness is nearer and easier than the loud one we have been chasing. And this quiet happiness is perfectly suited to the peace of night. For as the day's excitements fade and we lie down to rest, we come naturally to the gentle pleasures Epicurus prized. the simple comfort of rest, the relief of laying down our burdens, the quiet contentment of a peaceful mind. This nightly rest is itself a taste of the tranquil happiness he sought. Not intense, but deep. Not loud, but serene. The quiet joy of a mind and body at peace. Tonight, let go of the exhausting chase for more and rest in the quiet happiness of simple peace. You do not need any intense pleasure or excitement to be happy now. You need only the gentle contentment of this restful moment. The comfort of rest, the peace of the quiet night, the simple sweetness of being at ease. Rest tonight in the quiet happiness that Epicurus knew was the truest of all, and let its gentle contentment carry you towards sleep. At the very heart of Epicurus's philosophy lies a single beautiful idea: Ataraxia, freedom from disturbance, the untroubled mind. For Epicurus saw that the deepest happiness is not the presence of intense pleasure, but the absence of disturbance, a mind serene and untroubled, at peace with itself and the world. To understand Ataraxia is to understand the tranquility that is the goal of the whole Epicurean art of living. What is Ataraxia? It is the state of a mind free from turmoil, free from anxiety, fear, and inner agitation, free from the disturbances that trouble our peace. It is not a state of excitement or intense feeling, but a deep and stable calm, a serene tranquility, an untroubled quiet of the soul. Epicurus believed that this untroubled tranquility was the highest human happiness, that when the mind is at peace, free from disturbance, we experience the deepest contentment and joy available to us. Ataraxia is the quiet, stable happiness of a mind wholly at peace. Epicurus understood that our happiness is disturbed far more by our fears and anxieties than by any external lack. We may have everything we need for a pleasant life, and yet be miserable, troubled by fears, gnawed by anxieties, agitated by restless desires. And so the path to happiness, he saw, lies largely in freeing the mind from these disturbances, in removing the fears and anxieties that trouble our peace, so that the mind can rest in its natural tranquility. The untroubled mind is not something we must strive to create, but something we uncover by removing the disturbances that cover it. This is a hopeful vision, for it locates our happiness within reach. If happiness required the endless acquisition of external things, it would forever escape us, for the world can never be fully arranged to our liking. But because happiness lies in the untroubled tranquility of our own minds, in freedom from the fears and anxieties we ourselves generate, it is available to us through the cultivation of our own inner peace. We can free our minds from disturbance and rest in the tranquility that is our own deepest nature. This is the great promise of the Epicurean art, an untroubled happiness available within. And ataraxia is not a cold or empty state, but a warm and gentle one. The untroubled mind is not indifferent or lifeless, but serenely content, quietly enjoying the simple pleasures of existence, at ease with itself and the world, resting in a deep and gentle peace. It is the tranquility of one who has made peace with life, freed themselves from needless fear and anxiety, and learned to rest in quiet contentment. This warm, serene tranquility is the happiness Epicurus sought, and the happiness his gentle wisdom can help us find. Tonight, let yourself sink into ataraxia, the untroubled mind, free from disturbance. Release the fears and anxieties you have carried through the day, the agitations that trouble your peace. Let your mind grow calm and still, serene and untroubled, resting in its own deep tranquility. There is nothing to fear tonight, nothing to be anxious about, nothing to disturb your peace. Rest tonight in the untroubled tranquility of ataraxia, the quiet, serene happiness of a mind wholly at peace. Epicurus saw with great clarity that our tranquility is destroyed chiefly by fear, that beneath most of our anxiety and disturbance lie a few deep fears, and that freeing ourselves from these fears is the key to the untroubled mind. He identified the great fears that trouble the human heart, and he devoted much of his philosophy to freeing us from them, so that we might rest in tranquility. Understanding and releasing these fears is central to the Epicurean art of peace. Chief among the fears that trouble us, Epicurus saw, is the fear of death, the dread of our own mortality, which casts its shadow over the whole of life. This fear, often lurking beneath our awareness, disturbs our peace in countless ways, filling us with anxiety and driving much of our restless striving. And so Epicurus devoted great care to freeing us from it, to showing that death, rightly understood, is nothing we need fear. To release the fear of death is to remove one of the deepest disturbers of our peace. A second great fear Epicurus addressed was the fear of the divine, the dread of angry mobs, of supernatural punishment, of a hostile cosmos. In his age, people were tormented by fear of the god's wrath, by anxiety about divine punishment in this life and beyond. And Epicurus sought to free them from this fear, to show that the divine, whatever its nature, was not something to dread, and that the cosmos was not a hostile force to fear, but something we could live within peacefully. In our own age, this might speak to our anxieties about a hostile or meaningless universe, the fear that existence itself is against us. And beneath these specific fears lay a more general source of disturbance, our anxious desires and our dread of not getting what we crave, or of losing what we have. So much of our anxiety, Epicurus saw, comes from our excessive and unnecessary desires, from craving things we do not need and fearing their loss. And so freeing ourselves from these excessive desires, learning to want only what is simple and necessary, quiets a great deal of our anxiety and disturbance. To simplify our desires is to remove a deep source of the fear and craving that trouble our peace. Epicurus offered a beautiful summary of his therapy for the soul, a fourfold remedy for a tranquil mind. Do not fear the divine, for it is not something to dread. Do not fear death, for it is nothing to us. What is good is easy to get, for our natural needs are simple and easily met. And what is terrible is easy to endure, for pain is either brief or bearable. This fourfold remedy, held in the mind, dissolves our deepest fears and anxieties and opens the way to tranquility. It is a gentle medicine for the troubled soul. There is deep reassurance in this Epicurean therapy, for it suggests that our disturbances, however heavy, rest largely on fears that can be examined and released, that beneath our anxiety lies a peace that becomes available when we free ourselves from needless fear. We are not doomed to a troubled mind. We can free ourselves from the fears that disturb us and rest in tranquility. This is the healing work of Epicurean wisdom, to free the soul from fear and open it to peace. Tonight, let the gentle Epicurean remedy soothe your soul. Whatever fears you have carried into the dark, of death, of an uncertain future, of loss, of the great uncertainties of existence, let them soften and release. There is nothing you need to fear tonight. You are safe, you are at peace, and the fears that trouble you are lighter than they seem. Rest tonight in the freedom from fear, and let your soul settle into deep tranquility. Of all the fears Epicurus sought to heal, none was more important than the fear of death, for he saw it as the deepest disturber of human peace, the shadow that darkens the whole of life. And he offered one of the most famous and consoling arguments in all of philosophy, a gentle medicine for this deepest of fears. Though we approach it lightly, at the edge of sleep, its wisdom can bring a profound and lasting peace. Death is nothing to us, Epicurus taught, and he explained why with beautiful simplicity. For while we exist, death is not present, and when death is present, we no longer exist. The two never meet. Death is not an experience we undergo, for when it comes, there is no longer a we to experience it. And so death, he argued, is not something that can harm us, not something we can experience as bad, not something we need fear. Where death is, I am not. Where I am, death is not. The one who grasps this is freed from the dread that troubles so many. Epicurus saw that much of our suffering over death comes not from death itself, but from our anxious anticipation of it, from the dread and fear that haunt us while we are alive. And this anticipatory suffering is, in a sense, needless. For the thing we dread is not something we will ever actually experience as bad. By freeing ourselves from this anxious anticipation, from the fear of a death that is nothing to us, we remove a great and needless disturbance from our lives and free ourselves to live in tranquility. The cure for the fear of death is the recognition that death is not something to be feared at all. And there is a deeper wisdom here about how we live. For Epicurus saw that the fear of death, when released, frees us not only from dread, but for life, frees us to live fully and peacefully in the time we have, rather than shrinking in the shadow of a feared end. The one who has made peace with mortality is free to enjoy the simple pleasures of existence, to live tranquilly and fully, no longer troubled by the anxious dread of death. To release the fear of death is to be freed into a fuller, more peaceful life. Epicurus also counseled that we need not crave immortality, nor grieve that our lives are finite. For a life, however long, can be complete and full. The point is not to live forever, but to live well, to fill our days with tranquility and simple pleasure. The wise person, he taught, does not fear death nor desperately cling to life, but enjoys the life they have with gratitude and peace, complete in each day, unhaunted by the length or brevity of their span. It is not more time we need for happiness, but the tranquil enjoyment of the time we have. There is a profound peace in this teaching, a peace that can settle the deepest of our anxieties. When we release the fear of death, when we see that it is nothing to us, not an experience to be dreaded, a great shadow lifts from our lives. We are freed from the anxious dread that haunts so many, freed to live and rest in tranquility, freed to enjoy the simple gifts of existence without the darkening fear of their end. This is among the deepest gifts of Epicurean wisdom, peace with our own mortality and freedom from its dread. Tonight, let the gentle wisdom of Epicurus soothe any fear of death or ending that troubles you. There is nothing to dread. Where you are, death is not, and you are here now, alive and at peace. Release the anxious shadow and rest in the tranquil enjoyment of this present moment of peace. Let the fear of endings dissolve and rest tonight in the deep serenity of one who has made peace with the natural course of things. At the very center of the Epicurean art of tranquility lies a profound understanding of desire. For Epicurus saw that our peace is disturbed most of all by our desires, and that the key to tranquility lies in cultivating simple, natural desires rather than being ruled by excessive, unnecessary ones. This art of desire is perhaps the most practical of all his teachings, and one that can transform our relationship with wanting. Epicurus made a beautiful and useful distinction among our desires. Some desires he saw are natural and necessary. The desire for food, for water, for shelter, for basic security, for friendship. These are easily satisfied, and their satisfaction brings real and lasting contentment. Other desires are natural but not necessary. The desire for particular luxuries, finer foods, more elaborate comforts. These can be enjoyed but need not be pursued, and craving them can disturb our peace. And still other desires are neither natural nor necessary. The desire for wealth, fame, power, endless acquisition. These are empty and insatiable, and the craving for them is a great and needless disturber of our tranquility. The path to tranquility, Epicurus taught, lies in focusing on the natural and necessary desires, which are simple and easily met, and freeing ourselves from the empty, insatiable desires that can never be satisfied. For the natural desires are few and easily fulfilled. It takes little to satisfy hunger, thirst, the need for shelter and companionship. But the empty desires for endless wealth, for ever more status and acquisition, are bottomless, forever unsatisfied, forever driving us in a restless and futile chase. To simplify our desires, to want only what is natural and necessary, is to find a contentment that is easily reached and stably held. This is the deep wisdom of what is good is easy to get. Epicurus saw that nature has arranged things kindly, that what we truly need for a happy life is simple and easily obtained. The natural pleasures, the satisfaction of hunger with simple food, of thirst with clean water, of loneliness with friendship, of weariness with rest, are easily available and deeply satisfying. It is only our empty, artificial desires that are hard to satisfy, and these we do not need. When we align our desires with our true needs, we find that happiness is easy to reach and always within our grasp. There is a profound freedom in this simplifying of desire. So much of our anxiety and disturbance comes from our excessive, unnecessary wants. From craving what we do not need, chasing what does not satisfy, fearing the loss of what we cling to. When we free ourselves from these empty desires, when we learn to want only what is simple and necessary, an enormous weight lifts. We are freed from the endless, futile chase for more. We find contentment easily in the simple satisfaction of our true needs, and we rest in a tranquility no longer disturbed by insatiable craving. To simplify our desires is to free ourselves for peace. And this simplifying of desire brings a beautiful independence. For the one who wants little is easily satisfied, and so is free. Free from dependence on wealth and luxury, free from the anxious pursuit of more, free from the fear of losing what they do not need. Epicurus prized this self-sufficiency deeply, the freedom of one whose happiness rests on simple, easily met needs, and so cannot easily be taken away. To want little is to be rich, secure, and free, content with what is simple and always available. Tonight, let your desires grow simple and few. Release the empty cravings for more wealth, more status, more acquisition, that disturb your peace, and rest in the simple sufficiency of what you truly need. In this moment, you have enough. The comfort of rest, the peace of the night, the simple gift of being alive. Let the restless wanting grow still and rest tonight in the deep contentment of simple desire, the tranquil peace of one who wants only what is easily and beautifully enough. Having freed ourselves from empty desires, we discover one of the most beautiful of Epicurean truths, that the simplest pleasures are the sweetest, and that a life of simple pleasures, enjoyed with a tranquil mind, is a deeply happy life. For Epicurus was, in the truest sense, a lover of pleasure. But the pleasures he loved were the simple ones, and he savored them with a depth and gratitude that the jaded seeker of intense pleasures never knows. Epicurus lived on the simplest of fare: bread, water, a little cheese, the vegetables and fruits of his garden. And he found in these simple pleasures a deep and genuine delight. "Send me a pot of cheese," he once wrote to a friend, "that I may feast whenever I please." A pot of cheese, a feast. This was the spirit of Epicurus, to find real delight in the simplest of pleasures, to savor them fully, to need little and enjoy it deeply. He understood that the capacity for happiness lies not in the grandness of our pleasures, but in the depth of our enjoyment of simple ones. There is a profound wisdom here, for Epicurus saw that the one who has learned to enjoy simple pleasures deeply is far happier than the one who requires elaborate and intense pleasures to be satisfied. The simple pleasures, a good meal when hungry, cool water when thirsty, rest when weary, the warmth of the sun, the company of friends, are always available, easily obtained, and deeply satisfying when enjoyed with full attention and gratitude. The one who has cultivated the capacity to savor these simple gifts carries the source of happiness within them, always available, never dependent on rare or costly things. Epicurus also understood that plain fare enjoyed with a tranquil mind is sweeter than luxury enjoyed with an anxious one. Plain dishes, he taught, give as much pleasure as a costly diet when once the pain of want is removed. The bread and water of the hungry person is sweeter than the feast of the anxious one. The simple pleasure enjoyed with peace of mind surpasses the elaborate pleasure enjoyed with the troubled heart. It is not the costliness of the pleasure that matters, but the peace and gratitude with which we enjoy it. A tranquil mind makes simple pleasures rich, and there is a further wisdom, that the occasional enjoyment of luxury is sweeter for one who lives simply. Epicurus did not forbid all richer pleasures. He taught that they could be enjoyed in moderation, on occasion. But he saw that the one who lives simply enjoys such occasional pleasures far more than the one who is jaded by constant indulgence. The rare treat is a delight to the simple liver and a bore to the jaded one. To live simply is not to deny ourselves pleasure, but to heighten our capacity for it. To keep our delight in the simple gifts of life fresh and deep. There is deep contentment in this cultivation of simple pleasures. When we learn to savor the simple gifts of life, food, drink, rest, warmth, friendship, the beauty of the world, with full attention and gratitude, we discover that happiness is always available to us in the simplest things. We are freed from the exhausting pursuit of intense and costly pleasures, and we rest in the easy, abundant happiness of simple delights, deeply enjoyed. This is the sweet, contented happiness of the Epicurean life, rich in simple pleasures, tranquil in mind, grateful for the easy gifts of existence. Tonight, savor the simple pleasure of rest, one of the sweetest and most tranquil of all pleasures. Feel the deep comfort of lying down, the relief of the day's end, the simple sweetness of warmth and quiet and peace. You need no grand or costly pleasure to be happy now. This simple pleasure of rest, savored with a tranquil mind, is among the deepest delights of life. Rest tonight in the sweetness of simple pleasure, and let its gentle contentment carry you towards sleep. Of all the pleasures and goods that Epicurus prized, one stood above the rest as the sweetest and most essential to a happy life: friendship. For Epicurus, and for the community of friends who gathered in his garden, friendship was among the greatest of all treasures, a deep source of tranquility, joy, and security, and one of the most beautiful gifts that life affords. His wisdom on friendship is among the warmest and most enduring of all his teachings. Of all the things that wisdom provides for the happiness of the whole life, Epicurus wrote, by far the greatest is the possession of friendship. He valued friendship above almost everything, above wealth, above fame, above most other pleasures. For he saw that our deepest happiness is bound up with our connections to others, that the love and companionship of friends is among the sweetest of life's pleasures and the surest of its comforts. A life rich in friendship, he believed, is a life rich in happiness, and no amount of wealth or luxury can compensate for its absence. Why did Epicurus prize friendship so highly? Because he saw that it serves our happiness in the deepest ways. Friends bring us joy and pleasure in their company. They offer us security and support in times of need. They share our lives, multiply our joys, and lighten our sorrows. The knowledge that we have friends who care for us, who would help us in need, who share our lives, who love us, is itself a deep source of security and peace, freeing us from the anxious isolation that troubles so many. Friendship is both a joy in itself and a foundation of tranquility. Epicurus built his entire way of life around friendship. His famous garden was not a school of solitary study, but a community of friends, living together in simplicity and mutual affection, sharing meals and conversation and the simple pleasures of life. He believed that the good life was best lived in the company of friends, that human happiness flourishes in warm community, in the sharing of life with those we love. The tranquil, contented life he sought was, at its heart, a life shared with friends. And there is a beautiful reciprocity in Epicurean friendship. For Epicurus taught that we should care for our friends as we care for ourselves. That true friendship involves genuine love and mutual care, a willingness to help and support one another, a deep bond of affection and loyalty. The friend, he saw, is another self whose good we cherish as our own. This warm, mutual, loving friendship, freely given and gratefully received, is among the deepest joys and securest comforts of a human life. There is profound warmth and peace in this teaching, for it reminds us that our happiness is bound up with love and connection, that the friendships that grace our lives are among our greatest treasures, sources of joy and security and tranquility. To nurture our friendships, to cherish those we love, to share our lives in warm community, is to build a life rich in the sweetest of pleasures and the surest of comforts. And to know that we are loved, that we have friends who care for us, is a deep source of peace, dissolving our isolation and warming our hearts. Tonight, let your heart turn gently and gratefully toward those you love, the friends and companions who grace your life, the bonds of affection that sustain you. Feel the warmth of these connections, the security of being loved, the sweetness of shared life, and rest tonight in the deep peace of friendship and love, knowing you are not alone, that you are held in bonds of affection, that the sweetest of life's treasures is yours. Let this warm, connected peace carry you gently towards sleep. Epicurus and his friends found their tranquility in a particular way of life, a simple, withdrawn, peaceful existence, apart from the noise and striving of the wider world. His famous garden, where he lived and taught, was a place of retreat from the anxious competition of society, a quiet haven of simplicity, friendship, and peace. And in this vision of a life withdrawn and peaceful lies a gentle wisdom for our own overstimulated age. Epicurus counseled a certain withdrawal from the anxious pursuits of the wider world, from the competition for wealth and status and power, from the political struggles and social ambitions that so disturb the peace of mind. Live unknown, he advised, meaning not that we should hide in shame, but that we need not chase the fame, status, and public striving that trouble our tranquility. He saw that the pursuit of these things brings far more anxiety than happiness, and that a quieter, simpler, more private life is often far more peaceful and content. To step back from the anxious striving of the world is to protect our peace. This does not mean a cold isolation, but a warm and peaceful simplicity, a life lived among friends, in modest comfort, apart from the disturbances of anxious ambition. The garden was not a lonely hermitage, but a warm community of friends, living simply and peacefully together, enjoying the simple pleasures of life and the sweetness of companionship, free from the anxious competition of the wider world. It was a haven of tranquility, a place where the peaceful, contented life could flourish, sheltered from the storms of anxious striving. There is deep wisdom here for our own restless age. For we too are caught up in an anxious competition, for status, for success, for recognition, for more, bombarded by stimulation and noise, driven by ambition and comparison, our peace forever disturbed by the striving of the world. Epicurus gently invites us to step back, to withdraw, at least in part, from this anxious striving, to build our own quiet garden of simplicity, friendship, and peace, to protect our tranquility from the disturbances of a competitive and overstimulated world. We need not win the anxious race the world is running. We can step aside and cultivate our peace. And this withdrawal is, above all, an inner one, a turning away in our own minds from the anxious values and endless striving of the world toward the simple, tranquil contentment of the Epicurean life. We can live in the world and yet cultivate this inner garden, this quiet space of simplicity, friendship, and peace, protected from the disturbances of anxious ambition. To cultivate this inner tranquility, whatever our outer circumstances, is to carry the peaceful garden within us, always available as a refuge from the storms of the striving world. There is profound peace in this vision of a life withdrawn from anxious striving. When we step back from the competition for wealth and status, when we cease to chase the fame and success that disturb our peace, when we cultivate instead a simple, tranquil life among friends, we find a deep contentment that the anxious strivers never know. We are freed from the exhausting race, the endless comparison, the anxious ambition, and we rest in the quiet garden of simplicity and peace. This is the tranquil happiness Epicurus found, and the peace his gentle wisdom offers us. Tonight, withdraw into your own inner garden of peace. Release the anxious striving of the day, the competition, the comparison, the endless pursuit of more, and rest in the simple, tranquil contentment of this quiet moment. There is nothing to achieve tonight, no race to win, no ambition to serve. There is only the peaceful garden of rest, where you can lay down your striving and simply be at peace. Rest tonight in your quiet garden, sheltered from the storms of the world, and let its deep tranquility carry you towards sleep. One of the most beautiful of all Epicurean practices is the cultivation of gratitude, and in particular, the treasuring of pleasant memories, the recollection of past joys. For Epicurus understood that our happiness is greatly enriched by gratitude, and that we carry within us a treasury of remembered pleasures, upon which we can draw for comfort and joy even in difficult times. This gentle practice is a deep source of tranquility and contentment. Epicurus prized gratitude deeply. He counseled attending to the good in our lives, to the pleasures we have enjoyed, the gifts we have received, the blessings that grace our existence, rather than fixating on what we lack or what troubles us. For gratitude, he saw, turns our attention to the abundance of good in our lives, filling us with contentment and joy, while ingratitude and discontent turn our attention to our lacks and troubles, disturbing our peace. To cultivate gratitude is to cultivate the contented happiness that is the goal of the Epicurean life. And Epicurus taught a beautiful practice of recollection, the treasuring and remembering of past pleasures. He believed that the pleasures we have enjoyed are not lost when they pass, but stored up in memory, available to be recalled and re-enjoyed, a treasury of remembered joy upon which we can draw for comfort and delight. Even in his final days, suffering great physical pain, Epicurus wrote that he was sustained by the joyful memory of past conversations with his friends, that the recollection of past happiness gave him such joy that it balanced even his bodily suffering. The treasury of good memories is a deep source of comfort and tranquility. This is a profound and practical wisdom, for it means that our happiness is not confined to the present moment, but enriched by the whole treasury of our remembered joys. When we cultivate the practice of recalling past pleasures, the good times we have known, the joys we have shared, the beautiful moments of our lives, we draw upon a deep well of remembered happiness, a source of comfort and contentment always available to us. Even in difficult times, we can turn to this treasury of good memories and find in it a prey that sustains and comforts us. And this gratitude for past and present joys is deeply connected to tranquility. For the grateful mind, attending to the good in life, is a contented and peaceful mind, while the ungrateful mind, fixated on lacks and troubles, is a disturbed one. To cultivate gratitude, to attend to the good, to treasure our joys, to recollect our past pleasures with delight, is to fill our minds with contentment and peace, and to protect our tranquility from the disturbances of discontent. Gratitude is both a source of joy and a guardian of peace. There is deep warmth and contentment in this grateful recollection. When we turn our attention to the good in our lives, the pleasures we enjoy, the joys we have known, the blessings that grace our existence, our hearts fill with a warm contentment, a grateful peace. We rest not in the anxious craving for more, but in the grateful enjoyment of what we have and have had, not in discontent, but in the warm appreciation of life's abundant gifts. This grateful, contented peace is among the sweetest fruits of the Epicurean art of tranquility. Tonight, let gratitude and pleasant memory fill your memory. Recall gently a few of the good moments of your life, the joys you have known, the love you have shared, the simple pleasures you have enjoyed. Let these treasured memories warm your heart with contentment and peace, and give thanks for the gifts of this day, this rest, this life. Rest tonight in warm gratitude, drawing upon your treasury of good memories, and let their gentle joy carry you peacefully towards sleep. All of Epicurean wisdom comes together in a single beautiful way of living, to be present to the simple pleasures of the moment, content with enough, free from anxious craving and needless fear. For Epicurus saw that the tranquil, happy life is lived not in anxious anticipation of the future or regret over the past, but in grateful enjoyment of the present, content with the simple sufficiency of what we have. This present, contented enjoyment is the essence of the tranquil life. Epicurus counseled attending to the present, to the simple pleasures available to us now, rather than losing ourselves in anxious anticipation of the future or fruitless regret over the past. For the present moment, Athens, met with a tranquil mind, is almost always sufficient for happiness. We have right now the simple pleasures that satisfy our natural needs, the peace of a mind free from disturbance, the gifts of the present moment. To be present to these simple present goods, rather than anxiously grasping for future ones, is to find the happiness that is always available now. And Epicurus understood the deep contentment of enough, the recognition that what we have is sufficient for happiness, that we need not endlessly crave more. Nothing is enough, he taught, for the man to whom enough is too little. The one who is never satisfied, always craving more, can never be happy however much they acquire, while the one who recognizes the sufficiency of what they have is content and at peace. To cultivate this sense of enough, To recognize the sufficiency of the present, the simple gifts that satisfy our true needs, is to find the contentment that is the heart of the tranquil life. This present contentment frees us from two great disturbers of peace: anxious craving for the future and fruitless regret over the past. So much of our disturbance lives in these areas, in our anxious desire for what we do not yet have, and our troubled dwelling on what is gone. But the present moment, met with gratitude and contentment, is free from these disturbances. Here, now we have enough. Here, now we can rest in peace. To return to the present, content with what is to return to tranquility. And there is a beautiful sufficiency in the simple present. For when we free ourselves from anxious craving and needless fear, we discover that the present moment, in its simplicity, is enough. That the simple pleasures of now, enjoyed with a tranquil mind, are a full and sufficient happiness. We do not need more than this: the simple satisfaction of our natural needs, the peace of an untroubled mind, the gratitude for present gifts. This is the tranquil sufficiency of the Epicurean life, content with enough, present to the simple pleasures of now, at peace in the sufficiency of the moment. There is deep peace in this present contentment. When we cease to crave anxiously for the future, cease to regret fruitlessly over the past, and rest instead in grateful contentment with the simple sufficiency of the present, we find a deep and stable tranquility. We are freed from the disturbances of craving and regret, and we rest in the peaceful enjoyment of what is, the simple gifts of the present moment, enjoyed with a tranquil and grateful mind. This present, contented peace is the fruit of the whole Epicurean art of tranquility. And tonight, in this quiet moment of rest, you have enough, more than enough, for peace. The simple comfort of rest, the quiet of the night, the gift of being alive. These present goods, enjoyed with a tranquil mind, are a full and sufficient happiness. Release the craving for more and the regret over less, and rest in the deep contentment of the present moment. Rest tonight, content with enough, present to the simple peace of now, and let the sufficiency of this moment carry you gently towards sleep. As our hour with Epicurus draws to a close, let us gather his gentle wisdom into a way of living. The daily cultivation of tranquility, the ongoing practice of the peaceful, contented life. For the tranquil happiness Epicurus sought is not a single achievement, but a way of living, cultivated day by day, through simple practices and gentle habits of mind. And this way of living is available to any of us who wish to walk its peaceful path. The foundation of this practice is the simplifying of our desires, the gentle turning away from empty, insatiable cravings toward the simple, natural desires that are easily satisfied. Each day, we can practice wanting less, being content with enough, freeing ourselves from the anxious pursuit of more. We can notice our empty cravings for excessive wealth, status, acquisition, and gently release them, returning to the simple sufficiency of our true needs. This daily simplifying of desire is the ground of the tranquil life. A second practice is the cultivation of simple pleasures, savored with gratitude. Each day, we can attend to and savor the simple pleasures available to us. Good food, cool water, rest, warmth, the beauty of the world, the company of friends, enjoying them fully and gratefully. We can cultivate the capacity to find deep delight in these simple gifts and to give thanks for them. This daily savoring of simple pleasures fills our lives with an easy, abundant happiness, always available. A third practice is the nurturing of friendship and love. Each day we can tend to our friendships, cherish those we love, and share our lives in warm community. For friendship, Epicurus taught, is the greatest of all the goods that make for a happy life. And to nurture our bonds of love and companionship is to cultivate one of the deepest sources of joy and tranquility. This daily nurturing of friendship warms our lives with the sweetest of pleasures and the surest of comforts. And a fourth practice is the freeing of our minds from needless fear and anxiety, the gentle application of the Epicurean remedy to the disturbances that trouble us. Each day, we can examine our fears and anxieties and release the needless ones. the dread of death, which is nothing to us, the anxious craving and fear of loss, which simplifying our desires dissolves, the fear of a hostile cosmos, which we can gently release. This daily freeing of the mind from needless fear opens the way to the untroubled tranquility that is the heart of the Epicurean life. The beauty of this practice is that it leads to a happiness that is easy, stable, and always available. Unlike the anxious pursuit of wealth, fame, and intense pleasure, which is exhausting, unstable, and forever unsatisfied, the Epicurean path of simple desire, simple pleasure, warm friendship, and freedom from fear leads to a tranquil happiness that is easily reached and stably held. We need not exhaust ourselves in anxious striving. We can cultivate, through these simple daily practices, the peaceful, contented, tranquil life that is the truest happiness. And each day we practice, the tranquility grows deeper until peace becomes our settled home. And tonight in resting, you are already practicing the Epicurean art. By laying down your striving, releasing your fears, savoring the simple pleasure of rest, and resting in grateful contentment, you are cultivating the tranquil peace that Epicurus knew was the truest happiness. Let this restful night be a part of your practice of tranquility, a laying down of disturbance, a return to peace, a taste of the untroubled happiness that is always available within. So we have spent this hour with the gentle wisdom of Epicurus, this quiet philosopher of the garden who understood that the deepest happiness is tranquility. We have seen that the truest happiness is not intense pleasure, but quiet contentment, that the goal of life is Ataraxia, the untroubled mind, that we find peace by freeing ourselves from needless fear, above all the fear of death, which is nothing to us, by simplifying our desires and savoring simple pleasures, by treasuring friendship, by withdrawing from anxious striving into a quiet garden of peace, by cultivating gratitude, and by resting content in the simple sufficiency of the present. But if you keep only one thing from tonight, let it be this gentle truth, that the deepest happiness is peace, and that peace is simpler and nearer than we think. You do not need wealth, fame, or intense pleasure to be happy. You need only a tranquil mind, freed from needless fear, content with simple pleasures, warmed by friendship and gratitude, at peace in the sufficiency of the present. This tranquil happiness is available to you now, tonight, in this simple moment of rest. And it is the truest happiness there is. The night has grown deep, and there is nothing left to do but rest in tranquility. Release the fears that trouble you, the cravings that disturb you, the anxious striving of the day. Let your desires grow simple, your mind grow calm, your heart grow grateful. Rest in the quiet garden of peace, savoring the simple pleasure of rest, content with the sufficiency of this moment. There is nothing to fear, nothing to crave, nothing to strive for, only to rest tranquil and content in the quiet happiness that is the truest of all. Thank you for spending this hour in the gentle company of Epicurus. If his wisdom has brought you peace, return to it whenever your mind grows troubled, and let it guide you again and again to the tranquil happiness of the untroubled mind. And if you wish to keep this quiet philosopher near, you may leave a small mark of stillness by subscribing. And now let everything grow calm and still. Rest deeply in the untroubled tranquility of Ataraxia, and let the gentle peace of the garden carry you softly into sleep. May you rest in deep tranquility and wake tomorrow carrying its quiet contentment with you. Good night.